Call 253-397-5594.
All right. Well, welcome, everybody. My name is Dr. Greg Eckel, and I'm the host of the What's the Health podcast. My venture into the podcast world. We're really excited to be bringing this to you. Been in clinical practice since 2001 in downtown Portland, Oregon, and I'm really excited. We're bringing healthcare that is going to promote thriving. We really think that what is missing in our healthcare discussion and just on the planet is really our healthcare really should bring us into a thriving state, not just survive or, where can I get my drugs covered from? But, the community of what we want to live in is really to promote this concept of thriving. So we're super excited to bringing it to you on the Contact Talk Radio. And, we want to look at this word thrive. You don't really get that so much in the healthcare debate and or discussion around yourself. So, a bit of, flourishing is another word that I'd like to promote out there. And it is what we've been doing. I like to say I don't like to compare my patients to the general American public because they are diseased and sick. And we're going to cover that. We're going to talk about the current state of affairs in the United States and in healthcare in general with our own bodies and really address and assess all of the levels of healing. From biochemical, physiological to basically spiritual. We're going to cover it all here on this discussion. And again, just super excited to be here with you. So if you find any value with this, I want you to, share it with your friends and family, and we can really make a movement and help change our health. So from here, how did I get here? So I've been in practice since 2001. I'm a naturopathic physician and licensed acupuncturist. And I was in the early 90s in Portland, Oregon. I was a preschool teacher, Montessori preschool teacher. And I was watching, at that time, 3 to 6 year olds being put on Ritalin. And my poster child was Michael. I like to say he included others in his learning. And he was a rambunctious dude. He definitely was all over the place, to this child, to that child, running around, definitely wild dude. And, but he had a full lot of life in him. And at that point, I was an assistant in the Montessori classroom. I'm definitely a Montessori child wannabe. And, the head teacher advocated for his parents to say, hey, I think that was just really the beginning of attention deficit disorder and ADHD. And she advocated for the parents to take Michael to the physician, where lo and behold, he was diagnosed with ADD. And I remember the first day he came into our classroom, and it really, it was super sad. He was slumped over in his chair, and that little sparkle that should be in the eye, that one I'm talking about. If you have kids out there or have seen kids, it's that little sparkle. It was gone. He was just slumped over. It was such a sad day. Yeah, sure. He stayed in his seat. But he just was not the same kid. He did not have that life. And, it was so inspiring to me. I just thought there's got to be a better way to treat these kids. And, I always knew if I went back to school, I wanted to be in service to people. And so that aspect of, seeing Michael just slumped over. I also had an experience. At that time, I had a booth at Portland Saturday Market. I was making kaleidoscopes and handmade marbles. Yeah, typical 90s Portland dude, I guess. And with that, I was a vegetarian at the time, and I thought vegetarian was very healthy. But I was not feeling very well, and I was run down and just really no energy. Just thought, man, I'm in my early 20s. What is up with this? This would be my vibrancy here in life. And a bunch of friends, community directed me to the National College of Natural Medicine. It's called National University of Natural Medicine now. And I went in there, and the providers, they addressed my diet, and they came back. So I did a little diet diary. I came back in, and they called me a junk food vegetarian. Here I am, young dude thinking he's eating well, eating vegetarian, but it was all packaged food, right? I was vegetarian, so I was like very healthy. No, it was basically vacant, empty food. And that is, I think it was brilliant that they just addressed my diet. I just changed my diet and I felt better. I thought, wow, I could really get behind this. And here I'm seeing Michael, this boy that was just drugged from 3 to 6 years old. And so I had all of these different paths leading me into naturopathic medicine. And while there, I got into energetics and Chinese medicine. I also have a master's of science of Oriental medicine. So I've really got where, East meets West naturally. We bring together full spectrum healthcare and address people where they are, meet you where you are, and create plans that actually get wind in your sails and get some momentum and movement. There's no right way or wrong way to do health. I think there's only your way. And that's what our goal is to design programs and treatments specifically personalized to you. I could have 12 people come into the room and everybody with the same kind of chief complaint. Let's call it fatigue, right? Like my junk food vegetarian foray into medicine, and they will all get different treatment plans based on what they bring, what their genetics are, what their stress levels are, what's their relationships, what's their community like. So all of these facets that we look at of, I call it addressing heart-centered beings moving through time and space. There's this concept in Chinese medicine that the heart is the emperor, empress. There's no word for mind, body, medicine. So when we talk about this concept of thriving, we want the heart or the emperor, empress. We're addressing heart-centered beings. As a heart-centered being, to you, a heart-centered being, we want to make sure we're addressing and assessing all of the facets of health. It's not just, oh, for this condition, here's this natural product, or here's this drug. In Oregon, with my degree, I have a DEA license. I can prescribe any drug on the planet. I just choose not to at this point in my career because I'm just amazed every year at what our bodies can do to heal themselves given the right information. I like to say I do a lot of nothing all day. And so we really want to bring, we assess, we figure out what is the root underlying cause and address you at that level. And that's really, when we bring back a thriving individual, that's how you do it. You address at the root imbalance. You don't just cover up symptoms or disease process. The medical model as I see it today is we have a disease management symptom-based model of care, meaning we're just treating symptoms. And by covering up symptoms, I'll have people come in with a laundry list, let's say over 40 items on my intake form. And that's critical mass for me. I just learned long ago, I drew the line in the sand. When somebody hits 40 symptoms on my intake form, it's a 13-page intake form. So it's pretty lengthy, but somebody hits that many symptoms, I know that all of the facets, they've got so much stress and inflammation in their lives that all of the organ networks are under the gun. And so to address that level, so that's kind of a, pretty steep curve of what we're talking about. We've got somebody with a lot of symptoms, and we're going to have to put a lot of information over here to get that body balanced out. But by addressing from the heart component of really bringing that heart back into healthcare, we can make great strides and make some great movement for folks because, it really is figuring out what is the motivation, what's the underlying cause, and, how do we affect change the best for you or your loved ones or your family. And it is that whole person healthcare that we want to promote. So in there, we've got this really the emperor, the heart-centered medicine, and as one aspect of that thriving. Fast forward to today, I just recently have gone through major life changes, and really it helped basically lift the veil for me and really show a lot of interconnectedness in the world, and really how I'm practicing medicine today. Over this last year, I lost my wife to an incurable neurologic condition called Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. And as you can imagine, there's a lot of grief over the last year as well. But there's been, I'm really trying to turn that personal tragedy into some really great benefits for the world and really uncovered some amazing remedies and what I'm calling them of Soraya's gifts. So, she passed of this Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, which is a rare neurologic condition similar to mad cow syndrome in cattle. So if you remember back in the 80s in England and Europe, they had that outbreak of mad cow syndrome in the beef. And they had to eradicate a bunch of their cattle in Europe because of this prion. It's basically a misfolded protein. So no known cure. So as loving husband and as a clinician and naturopathic doctor, I thought, what the hell? I'm going to swing for the fence. Let's see what we can do, right? There's no known cure. Let's just go for it. Maybe we're going to uncover. Maybe there'll be a miracle, right? I'm open to that. Went into the medical literature and uncovered a tremendous amount of research around regenerative medicine, stem cell therapy. I found remedies out there for proteins, all kinds of chronic neurodegeneration. So as a result of that, I've got a book coming out called Shake It Off, a fancy approach to Parkinson's solutions. So I've wrote the whole process up in there. That's coming out here in 2019. I have an online summit as well around chronic neurodegeneration, and really using the platform of what I went through, around death and dying, around, dealing with a loved one with chronic illness. It was, what Creutzfeldt Jakob looks like is within 2 months, it's rapidly progressing dementia. And then my wife couldn't talk anymore. And then we basically watched her, just disappear over a year. And, just a brutal process. And, it really has informed me as a being on the planet, as a clinician, as a practitioner, has brought out more empathy and love, really. The way that I made it through was just basically to surrender to the whole process, to life, and, just allow and receive. And, it really is a tremendous growth opportunity of allowing what is out there in the world. And it really opened up my eyes of a discussion around health. One of the things that I'm hoping to accomplish here is to change the debate. It drives me batty when I hear we're battling cancer, or we're going to fight against this autoimmune, or, really around the big C word, it comes up a lot for people, is like, I'm going to fight against this, or it's a battle, or there's this, this other thing in me. And really the debate, and it comes back to this Chinese medicine approach of heart-centered medicine, is, maybe we can take some learning from the process and not accept the disease process. I mean, it can be very big motivating factor for us to change our lives, to change our relationships, to have the conversations we need to have. With what I went through is like basically poof, gone. We weren't able to have some of those ending heart-to-heart conversations that you would imagine or you see in the movies, right? So we had to discover other ways of communicating with each other. And, really that is what has helped me kind of lift that veil of separateness that we experience in this plane. If that, and I would love your comments or questions at any point during this podcast down the road. I want to hear from you. You can find us at naturecuresclinic.com, and please write to me. I want to know what's going on with you. And if you have specific questions about health, I'd love to answer those. And so we can do them right here. I'm here weekly on the Contact Talk Radio from 2 to 3. But on this process of the veil is thin, or lifting of the veil in this communication component, these psoriasis gifts, I want to share those with the world. And, basically I'm lecturing. I'm coming out online with some more information for folks. And really my purpose and passion is to help as many people as I can achieve optimal wellness through an integrative care model. So again, it is where that East meets West, and where those come together naturally is really what we're after. And, your body can heal way more profoundly than you think it can. Current state of affairs in the United States, we've got average American over 55 on 2 to 3 pharmaceutical medicines. Our healthcare debate, the U.S. is last in healthcare in developed nations. We have the most expensive healthcare. Some stats that I looked up before coming on today, we had U.S. ranked last of developed nations. So there were 11 nations that this study looked at. We had the most expensive care, $8,500, $8,508 per person per capita. That was 2011. And the least healthy population. So, there's a total disconnect. When I'm talking to people, I'm out lecturing, I'm lecturing to patients and the public, and I ask them, who here has heard, oh, that symptom is you're just getting old, right? Like we hear that all the time, like, oh, you're tired, you're fatigued, you have aches and pains, maybe you have a little bit of memory issues, like normal aging. And so that word normal, I do not like that. I don't want to compare my population base, my patients, to the general population. The style of aging that I want to promote and that I do promote is what I call this thriving model, right? I used to live in Vienna, Austria, and I was, as a 20-year-old in college, I did a semester abroad, and I was hiking mountains with 80 and 90-year-olds. The only difference from me and them, they were using ski poles, and it took them a little bit longer to get to the top of that mountain. And that is the style and the type of aging that I think is normal, healthy aging. What we're seeing now, and what happens is it's so common. I'll ask a room full of 100 people, okay, here, who has back pain? Who has headaches? Who has knee pain? And 95% of the hands go up in the room. And I have people hold their hands up, and I say, okay, now look around. Look how common this is, right? So most providers are seeing this sick, diseased model of care and our aging population that's getting worse and worse. And they're thinking, the providers are saying, well, this is normal because look, everybody has it, right? You might be thinking that yourself, like, well, geez, Jane and Joe down, my neighbors, they all are feeling the same way. Well, they're feeling the same way because they're under the same environment. They're living with the same stuff, and their thought process is the same as well. A case in point on this recently. So what is normal versus what is common? And those are all very common symptoms that I see in our diseased, sick society in North America. And what I'm here to say is that is not normal. Those are wake-up calls. Those are like the little shiny flag saying, pay attention to me, I'm out of balance. And so what you got to do with that is, it's not like take this purple pill and all of your symptoms go away, right? That's what gets marketed to us. About $12 billion a year. If I had $12 billion a year, we would be living in a much different culture and society, one that people are they're thriving. They're off of their drugs. They're more creative. They're more productive. They're more happy. They've got more energy, right? There's a lot more love in that society because we've got happier, healthier population out there that are more creative, more productive. Like that's what we can actually create here now, right? We just got to get educated. The root word of doctor is docere, or teacher. And that's what I started my career as a preschool teacher. And so I'm still educating today. And that's why I'm bringing it online onto this platform. So I'm hoping to reach millions. So help me out with that, eh? So on that, our healthcare system is broke, right? We've got providers going into agreement with dysfunctional individuals that are sick and diseased, looking for the next drug. I've got people that come into my office for consults, and they'll say, oh, I'm doing pretty fine, doc. And I ask them, fine, huh? What happens if you stop those 5 drugs that you're on? And they pause and they get really serious, and they look at me and they say, well, doc, I couldn't do that. I'd die. It's like, well, that's not fine. Your body actually can heal itself. I've had folks with hemoglobin A1Cs for diabetes. That's a 3-month window or marker of their sugar imbalances in their body at 14%. That's uncontrolled, raging diabetes. We've been able to get them under 6.5%. So these things, I'm not saying everybody gets cured or we get to reverse everybody's symptoms, but if you work at it and you haven't had past that point of no return, I'm not the doctor to, limit your body's healing abilities. all too often I get patients in here, they've been given death sentences, right? They got a diagnosis of cancer. You got 6 months to live, Mrs. Smith. There's no way that the physicians have that much power. But that thought of implanting that into the patient's mind is a death sentence, especially if the patient goes into agreement with the professional in the room. So, you really want to watch, what we do put up here in the old noggin. Our brains and minds are powerful creating machines, and can really create our reality in multiple ways than one. So, we're looking at the healthcare system, right? We can all agree it's busted and it's broken. And there are a lot of great, smart, brilliant people working on this puzzle here. I'm taking it directly to you because I think that you've got the power to actually make the change, and you can do this by the choices that you're making, by the decisions that you make, by what you put into your brain, and what the thoughts are that you're also thinking in there, because that stuff comes out. All too often, I get people resigned to their health. Just saw a gentleman the other day with diabetes. He's 80. He doesn't like vegetables, right? His wife's really just nagging him, trying to get him to eat those vegetables. And by golly, he just doesn't like vegetables. So there's a lot of things we can do for him. I do want him to start eating vegetables, but we got to figure that out. It's not my way or the highway, but there are multiple roads to Wellville is the way that I call it. So, on this healthcare as a general system being broken, if Dr. Eckel was in charge, number one, there would be no direct-to-consumer marketing. The advertisements on television, go ask your doctor, they're laughable. I don't consume a lot of mainstream media because it's a negative Nelly. Like, it is total bombardment into a fear state for most of the population. I've actually put multiple patients on a diet from mainstream media because of the fear that they get put into. And it's almost like a mind control, really. When you look at it, it's like, man, you tune in. If I tune in and I look at how many ads for drugs are out there, it's astonishing. Like, once I understood, like, we're walking around in a pharmaceutical cloud out here, folks. And once you see it, it's like, wow, you get through, it's almost laughable, right? They go through all of those side effects and it always ends in death, right? And the number 4 cause of death in the United States is actually doctors. So, there is something to watch out for here, in that you've got to watch what you're being sold, right? I mean, I teach my kids on the advertising front, they're just selling soap. That was the early advertisements out there. And so you look at, man, there's a lot of money going out there. Case in point, Humira. You probably heard about this. This is the new kid on the block, and it's a blockbuster drug. It is a biologic drug. This is only for a small subset of the population, but I knew we lost the healthcare debate when we started talking about drug coverage, right? Are my drugs covered? That's not healthcare policy. That is a drug care policy. Humira, $536 million a year advertising budget. There is an amazing return. I mean, it's a blockbuster drug. You go look up how much money they're making on that, right? It's like a $60,000 a year drug, where the patient with insurance is got either no copay or a $4 copay. And so what is going on with that? That's a big one for rheumatoid arthritis. There are tons of things we can do for rheumatoid arthritis. This regenerative medicine, there's some amazing things there that we've seen folks with rheumatoid arthritis improve with regenerative medicine program. So I'm not going to say we're treating rheumatoid arthritis with regenerative medicine, but I've seen people that have received regenerative medicine with rheumatoid arthritis get better. So we've got this climate of drug policy and drug control. So Humira, $536 million, right? Advertising budget. They're getting a tremendous return. So that's why we're seeing those ads everywhere. I mean, when I've watched it, I thought, well, maybe I could use some Humira, right? I mean, that's how convincing and, well written these ads are, right? In a marketing component. So number one, we need to get rid of direct to consumer marketing. They don't have it in Canada. That's kind of a sane country up there. A little bit too cold, but they love hockey. So, but the healthcare reform, really, we lost the debate when we started talking about drug coverage, right? I know it's a big thing for so many seniors and general population because that's what we've been taught, right? Oh, I'm ill, I must need a medication, right? And I'm here to tell you, over 18 years of practice, I keep getting more and more confidence with what our bodies can do given the right information. So my job as Dr. Doceri, teacher, is to remove obstacles to cure. So we got to figure out, okay, well, what kind of lifestyle stuff is happening for you that may be contributing to the imbalance or the root imbalance? And then can we remove that stuff, get some new information into your system, and then have your body, and it's an inherent innate wisdom, heal. And I have seen stage 4 cancers go away. I've seen autoimmune conditions go away. I've seen neurologic conditions improve, such as Parkinson's and MS, peripheral neuropathy. These things are not supposed to correct or cure. So I'm not curing anything. It's the person's body. It's your body that can heal itself given the right information. That is the basic tenet of naturopathic medicine. The body heals itself. We just have to figure out, what's the strands. We got to listen to you and trace those things back to the root underlying imbalance. And I will tell you time and time and time again, I'm way more confident. I like to say I do a lot of nothing all day, right? I'm listening. I create an environment where I do not go into agreement with limiting beliefs. We figure out how do we get momentum for you or for your loved ones, and then we go after that and we set the stage and we go towards it. That's how healing works. And over and over and over again, it's amazing. I get to see a lot of spontaneous remissions here at Nature Cures in Portland, Oregon. Pretty incredible. So welcome. So we made it to halfway through. If you're just joining us, again, I'm Dr. Greg Eckel, and this is What the Health. And I'm so excited to be bringing this podcast to you. If you just tuned in, you can go to my website at naturecuresclinic.com and click on the button there. We'll have it up, and you can watch from the beginning. And I hope you share this with your loved ones and help me get the message out, because I think it's time. Last summer, I'm originally from Western Pennsylvania, Johnstown, Pennsylvania. It's outside of Pittsburgh, kind of down the border, foothills of Appalachia, really beautiful area. Just north of West Virginia, Western Maryland border, down there in the corner. Really just salt of the earth folk, and it was an amazing upbringing. I'm sitting back there with my family at a family reunion. We're at Eat N Park, Eat N apostrophe Park. And I'm sitting there with my kids and my Aunt Joan, and I'm looking around. And okay, this is a food buffet. I will tell you that. It's a food buffet, all you can eat buffet. I loved going there as a kid, but so it's still open back there. And I look at every table, and I'm looking around, and like, holy cow, obesity is rampant. It's just everywhere back there. And it's a food desert, right? You go into the grocery store, 5,000 square feet there's no real food in there. It's all packaged, it's all processed, it's got a bunch of preservatives, and it just is not great for health. And so we wonder, where does disease come from? And perhaps, we're doing it with our forks. But it dawned on me, like, man, this is over the top. My family, my people, I consider basically we're all one, just pretending to be a little bit separate in this plane. This interconnectedness of us all. These folks are being treated as a product. How much can we shovel down their gullet? And then how many drugs can we get them to maybe feel a little bit better? Or they start one drug, and then you got to do another drug for the side effect of the first drug, and then you got to do another one. You get into that polypharmacy thing. So it's like, people are now they're just like cogs in a wheel of how much profit can we make off of them, which I think is criminal, and I'm putting the flag down to say, wait a minute, we got to bring the healthcare back for thriving. This is, it's gone on too long, and I think it's time. People are, we're not doing well out here, and I want to really make sure that I'm a voice of reason. I can be a trusted source. We're going to use research, we're going to use clinical evidence, and we're going to use what works. One of the components with being in practice for so long, I used to employ 7 providers here at Nature Cures, and it was kind of the running. I became a clinician's clinician, right? So I send providers out to the conferences. They come back with like, "Hey, doc, here's the latest, greatest research. We got to use this product." And we would try it out with 50 to 100 patients, and just nothing happened. And you thought, wait a minute, how can that? There's nothing happened. We got this great research. Why didn't it work clinically? So I really want to share with you during these podcasts and the folks that I interview. I want to share like practical, tangible things that you can do to increase your lifespan. Right? Your health span is the concept. So, healthcare to promote thriving, and let's work on our health span. The way that I want to live a full, rich, abundant life, thriving on all fronts, right? With my brain, with my brawn, and with community, and just do amazing things. We can all do that. But, and then I just want to drop dead. Like, I don't want to suffer like this component of aging, this normal aging that we see, or again, remember, I'm calling it common aging, is disease sick America. And I don't want to promote that. Another facet of that component is around laboratory ranges. So a lot of folks don't understand there is nothing normal about laboratory ranges. It's a reference range. It's 2 standard deviations around an average. Just recently, well, there's been a couple changes in that over the last 2 decades of medicine. So one that I wanted to share is around testosterone, and this kind of leads into the next segment of the show today. Testosterone levels for men have been shown to be decreasing 1 to 2% every year after the age of 40. This is new, and they've been decreasing that way for about a decade. Just in this last year, the labs have changed the reference range for testosterone. It used to go up to 1100 or 1200. They dropped it about 300 points down to 900, which is now accommodated basically the castration of men in America, because the reference range, if you're on the reference range, you think, oh good, I'm on the reference range, all must be well. Well, no, there are definitely ranges that are optimal for your health, and you want to go to a functional medicine, naturopathic doctor, integrative medical practitioner that will help you sort that out, because you do not want to compare yourself to the general population. So 2 standard deviations around an average. So what does that mean? The American taking 2 to 3 drugs, sending their blood work in typically when they are ill, and then you're getting compared to the sick drugged American. So I don't do that in my practice. The naturopathic community does not do that. And we want to promote thriving and wellness, and there are optimal levels in there. But case in point, the reference ranges, again, are not healthy levels. So we really want to watch, when we're talking about health and thriving, what does that mean? So again, I want to promote this health span. I've gone on public television saying I want to live to be 150 years old. Right. Now, don't look at me like you think I'm crazy, because, if you could do it, again, not like what you're seeing out there, but if you could do it with your mind, with your muscle, and with community, why not? Like, this is a pretty amazing, amazing physical plane. This world that we are living in is beautiful. And, it should not be taken for granted. I'm grateful every day for another day of life, especially, after going through basically losing the love of my life. I definitely, I'm so glad I had Soraya in my life, and she taught me so much, and it was an amazing love. And I wish that everybody could experience love like that. But I will tell you, the loss has definitely made me way more grateful for being here and for being in this plane, and being able to hear the birds sing and watch the trees breathe, and go down to the beach or to the mountains, or sit around the dinner table with my family and listen to their stories and watch and see them grow. These things are, if we get into that gratitude model, that's a component of health span. And that aspect, I don't take anything for granted these days. And life can be too short. So my encouragement to you If you aren't living the way, if you're not feeling the way that you want to feel, or something isn't right, please, reach out to me or find a practitioner that will listen to you and that will address root causes and imbalances and really help promote thriving for you, because you are capable of getting there. Um, you know, how does it happen that we're not thriving, right? So as a physician, as a naturopathic physician, one of my mentors, Dr. Bill Mitchell, he's a co-founder of Bastyr University. I remember it fondly. He's passed off the planet at this point, but he called the naturopathic profession the immune system for Gaia. And it has so struck in my mind. As physicians, we're responsible for addressing the root imbalances and causes of illness. Well, you look at that, it's not just this individual sitting in front of us, right? It is also our environment. There's this concept in Chinese medicine as you are in the macrocosm is in you. Well, what does that mean? You are in the universe is in you. Or you can also say more basically, and what I've taken to saying is, I am the universe is me. Because we're innate intelligence expressed, folks. So you gotta really get that in there. Like, you came here for a reason, and I want to help you actualize that. So it's not just like, how many Netflix shows can I watch this weekend? Like, really, like, let's get out there. A lot of people need our help and our service and our creativity and our abundant thinking. So that's what I'm promoting here, is healthcare that promotes thriving. And we can do it. It's a lot of fun when you get into that flow as well. So, well, where does it come from? So this component of naturopaths as Gaia's immune system. So we've got to address my job. What I learned with this process with my wife, Soraya, was, wow, this illness may not even be hers. Like, it could have been multiple generations ago, right? We're talking about epigenetics and genetic expression. So it could have been traumas in the lifeline, which has made my job so much harder as a physician, that I've got to address, like, so many people don't know what their family trees are, right? We've got all of these gene tests and genetics, and we definitely play that in, with a big asterisk. You are not your genes. You may express your genes given the right information, just as your ancestors did, but also traumas of your grandmothers and great grandmothers may have triggered some events that are now coming to fruition. So we want to address at that genetic level. But also, we look at then the environment, right? So that's one meta epigenetic component, like, could have been generations ago, these traumas. So we're going to look at, as we go forward, we're going to go into family constellation work, some of my favorite ways of getting at those root imbalances, right? So we're looking at family constellation work and, on the mind aspect. Also in an epigenetic fashion. So we're going to cover those coming down the road. In fact, I'm going to take a note of that. We're going to talk epigenetics. And then, so from there, then we look at environmental toxicity. And this one is near and dear to me. I studied policy and management studies and environmental science as an undergraduate in central Pennsylvania, Dickinson College. And it really is, back then I was thinking, boy, we better save the humans. Like, so much for save the whales. Like, we're the dying breed on this planet because we're wiping out species and cutting down the trees. And again, this concept of what happens in the macrocosm, your environment happens in your body, right? I mean, we could trace this back to, we've got Rachel Carson of Silent Spring to help, really elucidate. In the 60s, the DDT was in the water that then people were drinking that was causing cancer and all kinds of health issues, right? So the environment, your environment matters. So we want to look at, I just took some notes on, what are some of the things that are affecting us? And this is not to be discouraging or overwhelming. When you get into environmental medicine, it can be very depressing when you look at, wow, we are getting exposed. We're just swimming in this soup of 82,000 chemicals a week in the United States, right? There's 1,700 new chemicals coming online every year that the EPA, basically just rubber stamp says, yeah, that's fine. But there's been no toxicity data done on these. Like, only about a quarter of the chemicals have been tested for the health consequences. So, what am I talking about? What's Dr. Eckel talking about? So, you look at, most recently Flint, Michigan, with lead in the water, right? And I don't even know, I don't think they've cleaned the lead out of the water in Flint, Michigan. But at the time of Flint, Michigan, I did a quick research and I looked in Western Pennsylvania and Pennsylvania there were 10 communities that had more lead in their drinking water than Flint, Michigan did at the same time. Great website to go check out is vox.com, vox.com. And they did by municipality. So you can check your water to see, are you getting lead in your water? Lead is a heavy metal. Lead lowers your IQ. Lead has serious consequences to your nervous system. And we're looking at dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, all of these neurologic conditions are on the rise, right? Yes, okay, we've got we've got our aging population of the baby boomers now coming through the healthcare system, but also we have this level of toxicity or level environmental component that we're living in, and we're swimming in this. And if you don't do anything to address or assess that level of toxicity in your life, then you're basically at cause. Like, these things are affecting you whether you think they are or not. So some things, I got the heavy metal. So, I will do a heavy metal assessment when necessary. When I learned about it as a student, there was no way. I started testing everybody, and I was like, oh, geez, what do we do with this? The NHANES data, which is a database of North America, looks at levels of toxicity in individuals, and it basically says we all have heavy metals in us. The question is are those heavy metals causing you a health issue? So, we want to look at that, but this is just the general setting of the stage of where we're going with what the health. These things, we got to address this. This is cold. Mercury comes from coal-fired plants for energy, right? So if we change our energy policies, we get different sources of energy. We're not then toxing ourselves out. What happens in the environment happens in the macrocosm, microcosm in the body. Pesticides, dioxins, we got plastics. So that component of the castration of men that I talked about, well, that's coming from plastics in the environment. They're estrogenic effects, and they're lowering men's testosterone, in addition to creating all kinds of endocrine or hormone imbalances for women as well. We created this. Fire retardants. This is an up and coming smoking gun one. If you fly a lot, if you're in the airplanes, you get a lot of off gassing, especially from those new planes with the plastics, and then the fire retardants in the seats. National Geographic just did a June expose on this, and it really is. We've been addressing it in the naturopathic community for 40 years. Is this environmental toxicity component? And then the hugest one is glyphosate. And you've heard of this. I was thinking it was banned in the EU, but I just met a Spanish fellow and he said it was not. But one of my personal heroes is Professor Serralani. He's out of France. He did the research in France where he was showing, glyphosate is the listed active ingredient in Roundup, which has been proven to cause cancer. Well, his lab actually showed that Roundup was 99 times more toxic than just glyphosate by itself. So the rats and the mice in his lab had 99 times bigger tumors, faster growing tumors when you look at the whole product of Roundup. I mean, we got this stuff. They're selling it like candy out there. Like, there's ads of spray your yard to get rid of the dandelion. Maybe we need the dandelions in our yards. When you look at what actually they're doing, they're replenishing the soil. They're bringing calcium back in. So, instead of toxing your environment because you're swimming in it, maybe let's listen to nature and follow it and really nourish and nurture it, because we're part of it. Right? So let's stop being at war against our environment and really embrace and listen, because it's there teaching us, right? We live in it. It's our home, right? We're toxing our home and expecting to get better, which it doesn't make any sense on any level when you look at it that way, right? So that component of levels of toxicity, we're going to talk about that more. We're going to talk about liver detox. We'll talk about colon detox. We're going to talk about how do you create a sanctuary or environment starting in your bedroom, into your home, and then, let's move out from there and change our communities, because these are the products that we're using. Skincare products, they're renowned. Just a bad detox joke, but I'll share it today. Really looking at this joke about, women eat about 1 pound of lipstick a year, and then the average male, eats about 2. All right, that was a bad joke. I'm sorry, and it may not have come across very well, but you get my point. Like these things that we're putting on our skin go into circulation, and there's really very little regulations on what can go into those products. So one great website for this, another resource is Environmental Working Group. It's ewg.org. I support them with some of the finances of the clinic, because they do some just astounding. They've got, like the Dirty Dozen list for organics versus non-organic foods, vegetables and fruits. They do a best seafood. Seafood bioaccumulates heavy metals, right? In the sea, the larger fishes like swordfish are rot with mercury. So a lot of times when I'm doing heavy metal testing, you have to tell patients to not eat fish because they're getting exposed to metals that way. So we really want to come back into a discussion around clean air, clean water, and clean food. These are the basics, and I would say are fundamental human rights that we need to make a priority for ourselves. As we start taking better care of ourselves, the off product of that is we start taking better care of the planet. Once we start realizing we're interconnected, we can't just live up here in the gray matter. We really pretend to in the West. The more intellectual we're going to be, working more on the computer, and I'm going to migrate up into the gray matter. But that's where all kinds of dysfunction comes from. That's where mental illness comes from. So really bringing it back, bringing the heart back into medicine, and bringing more love really is really what it comes down to. But so we've got this whole component of air, water, and food. Now, if you're not overwhelmed enough, the next piece has been a hard one, and I debated on bringing this up or not, but I am going to address it, because the root, we got to address root imbalances. And when we look at it, a friend sent me an article earlier in 2019 this year, and it made me look, right? And I'm talking, what I'm going to bring up, right? This is like we're already off the cliff with global warming and climate change. And you might be thinking, come on, doc, like you got to bring that up with the healthcare debate. Yeah, climate change. So it doesn't mean that everything is just going bad. It just means that we are off the cliff, and we've got to make some radical changes. And I think by getting a healthier population, we can increase our creativity, and we can really come up with some solutions that get this thing turned around, and we get our home back in order. We get Gaia, Mother Earth, protected, because we're thriving again. We don't even have a sustainable program or planet at this point, and that's what we really need to do. But this is our home. We're living on the thing, and it's toxed out, and it's given us all kinds of symptoms and signs. Well, how does that affect our health? Well, one, you look at just North America, we're seeing tick-borne illness go crazy rampant in North America. Well, why? Our winters aren't as cold. Well, what? So the bugs, the ticks don't die, and then they flourish, and then they're infecting more people with illness. So we're seeing around the globe that occurring with all kinds of insects and ticks. And so this isn't like, let's devise more insecticides to get them. It's like, well, let's go to the root imbalance. We're warming the planet. Like, let's get our farming policy under control. Let's get our energy policy under control. Let's make some changes at that level. But we can start with ourselves, and then in our house, in our families, and then move out from there. So I don't bring it up to overwhelm you, but it is a component that you can know. Dr. Eckel is thinking about this and how this impacts our health, because it has far-reaching issues and health impacts. So we really want to look at that. Um, again, that one, it feels like, oh, la, 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 I'm not going to listen because it's just too much. And I've been there. I just bring it up. I think, everything is as it is. We need to really assess what that is. And, one of the articles I read in just prep for this was, a lot of scientists only talked about a 2-degree as a worst case scenario, 2 degrees. We're up 1 degree Fahrenheit, but once we get to 2 degrees and we're on track to basically maybe even 3 to 4. So it's not to create fear or overwhelm. It's just looking at the realities and the possibilities of what could occur. And we're not there yet, but 2030 is not too far away. We're 2019, the launch of this. And I think we can do it. I'm very hopeful. Call me a radical optimist, but again, I leave the door open for everybody when they come into my clinic. I'm not going to limit the possibilities. I'm not going to limit my beliefs. I'm not going to limit your beliefs. And I am a firm believer that miracles do happen, but we've got to manifest them. Like, we can do it together, but we've got to get healthy, and we can't be toxing out our brains. We can't be fatigued. We shouldn't have brain fog. That's not an abundant state to be making decisions or to help change the planetary trajectory or to change your health or your family's health and to bring more love into this conversation. So, this is some of the paths that we're going to take together here. And I'm hoping, I'm going to bring in some of the world's top experts on a lot of these topics, and we're going to get into some deep conversations. I'm going to ask people about their personal beliefs, their practices. What have they found to really move the needle for their own healthcare, right? A component, is the biohacking component. So I'm big into, and I said I want to live to be 150. So there's one test I did that was very interesting. It was by telomeres. I have no connection to them, but you can measure your telomerase level, which is basically a DNA. It's off the DNA to tell you, how old are your cells? How old do your cells think they are? And I was so pleased. My cells came back. They're thinking they're 17 years younger than my biologic age. So, that felt good. Like, I'm walking my talk. I'm living my medicine. I'm out. I'm getting my sleep. I'm eating well. I'm hydrating. I'm drinking clean water. I'm cleaning my air. I'm getting in a hyperbaric chamber. I'm doing laser therapies, PEMF, pulsed electromagnetic frequency. I'm playing with all of this stuff because I get it. If I'm going to be the leader of a thriving movement, I've got to be thriving. And, honestly, I will tell you, I feel very vibrant. I feel strong. I get good sleep. I feel a lot of love. And that aspect, we've got good connections and community. The vision of really where we're going is really more love, right? This component of docere or doctor is teacher. And that's what I'm hoping to educate you and for you, your family, and your community. And we can really make a difference here. We're bringing more love, more creativity, more energy, so you can get more, just receive more, but also thrive. Healthcare should be promoting thriving, and that's what we're after here on What the Health. I want you, if you just tuned in, I'm Dr. Eckel. This is What the Health. I invite you to my website, naturecuresclinic.com, where you can catch this whole show. Please share it with your friends and family, and come on at 2 o'clock on Tuesdays on Contact Talk Radio. We're going to be here having this conversation. You can always tune into your favorite podcast venues and subscribe to our station and our channel. Subscribe to my show. Would love to have you along for the ride. Should be really interesting, a lot of fun, and we're going to thrive together. So, really want to encourage you to come on back and share. This component, when you look at this, heart is the emperor, empress, and the concept of there's no word for mind body medicine in Chinese medicine. So I'm going to bring it back, bringing the heart back into healthcare here. Heart disease is the #1 killer in North America, and we got to look at why that is. And so, we got to nourish our hearts, our emperors, our empresses, and that's the type of medicine. That's the way I'm going to talk out here. We're talking directly to the heart, from my heart to yours. So please share this with your families, your loved ones, and I look forward to having you along for the ride.